Welcome to Bed Crime Stories Podcast. I'm your host, T, and I hope you guys are all doing well. I've been away for a week because guess what? I caught COVID. After 3 years of avoiding it, it finally got me and I've been down for the count. So if I sound funny, that is why. I'm also not in my home studio, so you might hear a few sounds around me. I can't control that, but I wanted to give you some fresh content. So Dylan Rounds' mother, Candice Cooley, has been showing up on various YouTube channels recently, breaking the monopoly Duty Ron originally had on her. And in these conversations, she shared new information regarding Dylan's case, and I wanted to share those items with you. Number one, the number one suspect, and really the only official suspect, Jim Brenner, failed his polygraph, as did Chase Venstra. This is the first I've heard that these two men were subjected to polygraphs, and both apparently showed deception. The only person polygraphed who passed was Don Hatley. Number two, the Elko County Sheriff's Office are the ones who confirmed that the scratches on Troy Wadsworth's arm were indeed from an accident and they were the result of road rash. 3. Dylan's grandmother, Karen Rounds, talked to Don Hatley only on Sunday and asked him to do a wellness check just on that Sunday. So there were 0 wellness checks done by Don Hatley or Jim Brenner on Saturday for Dylan. And Candice confirmed that there were no footprints at Dylan's trailer and farm when they arrived on Monday, meaning the Monday after Dylan vanished. So it looks like both Don Hatley and Jim Brenner definitely never checked on Dylan. Candice said that Don led Dylan's grandmother to believe that as he spoke to her, he and Jim Brenner were at Dylan's farm checking on Dylan in real time. And when Candice and Justin arrived on Monday to look for Dylan, Jim Brenner told them that he and Don checked on Dylan multiple times that Sunday. So Don Hatley and Jim Brenner told the family different stories regarding how many times they did wellness checks on Dylan. This reinforces for me that Don Hatley and Jim Brenner never did any wellness checks for Dylan, which also underscores Don H's potential involvement in Dylan's disappearance, in my opinion. 4. Candice Cooley is now having mixed feelings about Chase Venstra's involvement in Dylan's disappearance. It sounds like Chase is no longer 100% cleared in Candice's mind anymore. But Candice said that Chase was not in Lucin that day. I'm wondering how she can say that because we've heard about Robert Aviles supposedly saying that he dropped Chase off in Lucin near Dylan's farm early Saturday, and there are also allegedly witnesses who saw someone booking it on a 4-wheeler out there in Lucin on Saturday away from the grain shed property. 5. Only Dylan's and Chase's phone records were able to be pulled by the police. Box Elder apparently waited too long when it came to Jim Brenner, and because Brenner had a burner phone, they were unable to pull his records. That means that the investigators cannot say with certainty where Brenner was in the morning and early afternoon of Saturday, May 28th, the day Dylan vanished, nor can they pinpoint his whereabouts on the Sunday after it, which is deeply disappointing to hear. 6. Don Hatley and Jim Brenner sent the police and family members to all the wrong places to search for Dylan, and they both jumped straight to the conclusion that they were all looking for a body, meaning Don Hatley and Jim Brenner were talking to Dylan's parents on the Monday they arrived to search for Dylan about looking for a body. They were not entertaining the thought that Dylan could still be alive. And according to Candice, Don Hatley sent the cops to a beautiful spring in the mountains, saying that it was the perfect place to dump a body. So the police went up there and they saw right away that Don Hatley was full of crap, and they were furious about him wasting their time. So Don Hatley was sending the family and the cops on wild goose chases when they first arrived to look for Dylan. 7. Per Candice, Don Hatley was screaming, and I quote, "I have to take care of this effing farm all summer." And he was saying this right when they were looking for Dylan that first week. All of this makes Don H. look very, very sus. 8. Jim Brenner did some spring cleaning in his trailer and in the grain shed 5 days after Dylan went missing, and Box Elder didn't do anything about it or show any interest in checking it out. A detective spoke to Brenner, and that's how they knew Brenner had been cleaning. Brenner, who is by all accounts a slob and not somebody to do spring cleaning, well, he didn't have his trailer or the shed property searched until June 16th. That gave Brenner almost a month to clean up the property after Dylan went missing. And apparently, Brenner even put things into his ramshackle truck and drove off with it during that first week. So I'm personally thinking that this must be the period of time when Jim Brenner complained to the police that they were making noise and stirring things up around the property and it was bothering him, so that the police then moved their base camp to a different location. So by making a stink about all the noise and commotion, Brenner, if he is the guilty party, found a way to manipulate the investigators away from the grain shed property, allowing him time to clean up evidence and get rid of things without anybody watching him. 9. Candice said that every time Box Elder would come over to talk to her or to Dylan's father, Justin Rounds, Brenner would show up and sort of insert himself there. He also sent them on those wild goose chases, as Don Hatley did, and Brenner said on that first Monday when the family showed up that Dylan threw his boots out there, meaning out there behind the dirt pile, because he didn't need them. So Brenner said that it was Dylan himself who threw his boots out there, and it was his choice because he didn't want them anymore. 10. According to Candice, Jim Brenner also told them that he hadn't seen Dylan for over a month when he spoke to them on that Monday. So these are all giant red flags that Box Elder failed to notice the first week that Dylan was missing. They didn't follow up on any of this stuff. Candice also clarified that Dylan's boots were 3 feet apart from each other. so there was a space of 3 feet between one boot and the other boot. She also said that the boots did not appear as if they'd been out in the elements being rained on for 2 days. It looked as if they'd been placed there right before the family got there. 11. Only cadaver dogs were used to search for Dylan. Box Elder apparently turned down bloodhounds that were offered to them on day 2 of the search. So on the Tuesday after Dylan went missing, they had access to bloodhounds, and they turned them down because they said that with the rain, all the rain that fell on Saturday afternoon and all day Sunday, that the dogs would only have a 25% chance of hitting on anything. And Candice says that she knows that that is likely true, but she would have still wanted to use the bloodhounds for the 25% chance that they could have struck on something. So why didn't Box Elder take up the offer to have those bloodhounds look for Dylan? 12. Candice said that although Kurt Wadsworth says that Dylan still owes him thousands of dollars, according to Candice, she looked in the financial records and she's saying that Dylan doesn't owe Kurt any money, that Kurt was paid off. So it doesn't look like Kurt's going to get any money if he was indeed owed money by Dylan, because the family is saying no. 13. Candice also admitted to Doug of No Thanks Investigates that Dylan would drink a couple of beers now and then. So Candice Cooley is not a Mormon, and she doesn't share the beliefs of maybe the rest of the family, but she made it sound like it would be no big deal if Dylan had indeed been seen drinking beer. She doesn't seem to think it's a bad thing. 14. Candice has also stated that ground penetrating equipment is going to be coming out to Lucin to be used to search for Dylan. And I hope that that type of equipment and technology can make all the difference, and that they can find Dylan, even though everyone keeps saying he's not out there, he's nowhere near there. I personally kind of think he is, because you know what? Jim Brenner doesn't seem like a very eager, hardworking kind of dude. And even if he hurt somebody in that way, I don't think he would drive that far to dispose of a body. Look where he may have put the boots if he is the guy who did this. 15. Jim Brenner told Candice that he wasn't at the grain shed property when Dylan parked the grain truck. He said that when he left to go to Don Hatley's barbecue for dinner around 2 or 2:30 p.m. that Saturday, the seed truck still wasn't at the grain shed. So Brenner is basically saying that he never saw Dylan on Saturday morning, and he believes that Dylan is the one who parked the grain truck, but he didn't witness it. And suddenly, maybe when he got home that night, voila, the grain truck was in the grain shed. By the way, Candice said it likely would have taken Dylan about 4 to 5 minutes to drive from his farm and the trailer over to the grain shed property. So if Dylan left at, say, 6:51 or 6:52 a.m., he would have been to the grain shed by 7 a.m. or just after 7 a.m. that Saturday. Also of note, Candice said that when Dylan's farmer father, Justin Rounds, saw the grain truck on the Monday they first arrived to look for Dylan, the grain was dry. Had the truck been parked later than 7 a.m. on the Saturday Dylan vanished, the seed would have been wet. It would have sprouted and it would have rotted. Clearly, the grain truck made it to the grain shed by 7 a.m. And that means that either Dylan or someone else parked it there, and they parked it there early Saturday morning before the rain got to all the seed in the truck. Remember, it rained all day Saturday and all day Sunday. As I'm saying this, it's dawning on me how important the weather that weekend will be if a case is made against Jim Brenner. The prosecution will definitely be using the weather and that rain to make points about what the family found on the Monday after Dylan vanished. So Candice herself believes Dylan parked his own grain truck around 7 a.m. and that is likely when something happened to him. And I am once again also feeling that Jim Brenner is likely the guy or one of the guys who harmed Dylan. Why else would Brenner be telling so many lies about when he last saw Dylan, about how Dylan's boots ended up near the dirt pile, about how many wellness checks he and Don made for Dylan? At the very least, Jim Brenner and Don Hatley should have been telling the same story about the number of wellness checks they made. And they weren't in unison, so someone is lying. Okay, well, that's it for this one. I again apologize for my froggy voice and any kind of acoustics that aren't quite right. But I hope that you've enjoyed having some new content. I hope you're keeping notes because we still need to find out what happened to Dylan, where Dylan is, and who done it. Until the next time on Bed Crime Stories. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. Give me some props here. I'm dealing with COVID. It ain't easy.